Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Someone You Should Know. Glad to have you with us. Our guest this morning is stuck in traffic right now, but he's on his way to the studio momentarily, and we'll get him on as soon as he does. Broadcasting from KVGI Media with production studios in Upper Michigan and studios right here in Frisco, Texas. Sure glad that you're all with us this morning. A few days before the elections, one day before Halloween. Nobody knows if the kids are going to be out trick-or-treating or what's going on. There's been all kinds of news about whether you should go out, whether you should stay in. But, you know, that's what makes news. And we have other great news for you. And I want you to maybe jot it down because someone you should know, as well as something to talk about, is moving. We are actually moving. Not far. We're moving from Friday to Wednesday. Oh, hump day. We are going to be your new companions on hump day every week beginning the middle of November on November 18th. We'll be letting you know about it via our posts and all, but we're going to have a great time. I'm going to be interviewing the same great guests. We're just going to be doing it on Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock. And then Vaughn will be joining me for our other show, Something to Talk About, immediately after, as always, at 11 o'clock. So it's just a matter of moving it on up. And if you don't catch us on Wednesdays because it's maybe inconvenient, it shouldn't be. But if it is, you can always go back online at any time, even by Friday morning, and go to the websites, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, and find us. So we're gonna have a great time. And thanks a lot to Mark Warner, the owner, operator, head monkey butt at KVGI Media, for kind of revising everything. I think it's going to be a great move for us. It's going to help with KVGI Media, and we just love the fact that you join us every week. When you watch our shows, do me a big favor, click that little like button, make a comment. Say, hey, you know, I really, really like your shows, and share those shows with everybody else. Tell them about it. The more likes we get, the closer we get to winning some kind of an award. I don't know what it'll be, you know, maybe a giant watermelon or something in the springtime. But hey, that's what we're here for. We're here to entertain you, inform you, maybe even educate you a little bit. So that's what KVGI Radio was all about. Now we are KVGI Media, and that just encompasses a whole new world. But we're very, very thankful to be able to spend each week with you. There's lots of other great shows on KVGI. Go to KVGI Media, and you can see some of the great shows that we have, and join in, listen to them. Sometimes you could sit and watch them on your computer like you are doing right now. Otherwise, you can just click on a lot of links and you can just listen to the audio version of the broadcast. Well, this morning, while we're waiting for my guest to join in, we're going to be discussing a little bit about the election process. We are not going to be talking politics here. We're not talking politics. We're not talking political candidates. But I'll let the cat out of the bag, because as soon as he gets into the studio, Mike Martin is going to be joining me. Mike is one of the greatest guys I've ever met. He's got a personality, a heart of gold. He's very, very involved with veterans. He's head of the veterans organization at the Veterans Club at Frisco Lakes, which is I hate to use the word retirement community. It's a 55 and over community here in Frisco. Very, very involved in veterans affairs. And Mike has been an activist his whole life. He's a champion of a variety of causes. And because of that, I have been pretty outspoken about the election process almost all my life, because I haven't been happy with what's been going on for many, many years, in fact, even decades. And I think it's something that needs to be said, needs to be shared, needs to be thought about, needs to be especially taught to our younger generation, because somewhere along the campaign tracks, it got derailed. And it's interesting in some of the research that I did for the show, because people might say this has been one of the most bitter campaigns ever. Maybe not so, because there have been some campaigns back in the 60s and even back in the 19th century that were borderline vicious. But that's what this show is all about today, is because my one word question is, why? Why do political campaigns have to be cutthroat, below the belt, smack each other around? I don't think it proves anything. Going back, many years, I remember when they had the national conventions, and some of you that are a little bit older will remember when the conventions used to be in these great big convention halls, like we thought they were going to be this year, and they would have what was called a platform. And that was, whether it was the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, they built a platform, and the platform was built with planks. Now, what does that mean? That means that each one of those planks was a program, whether it was an educational program, an environmental program, a tax program, but each one of them was something that the party worked on to come up with a plan for. If that candidate is elected, this is what he's going to do about that plank. And then all of those planks together made up the platform. And as a kid, and especially after I turned 21 and started voting, I was very interested in knowing what that was all about, because that was what was going to allow us to make an informed decision as to which candidate we felt was best for the future of the country. Does that not make sense? That's what it was back then, but it doesn't seem like it's that way now. Case in point, over the last week, we've only got 3 more days until Election Day. The early voting ends today in most states. I think it's 7 o'clock here in Texas, but all around the country, basically, this is the last day to do a couple of things. Number one, to vote in person early. Number two, take your absentee ballot and physically take it to a location and drop it in a drop box. For the most part, across the country, the timing for mailing your ballot in is gone, because many states say that if the ballot is postmarked by next Tuesday, it will get counted. There are other areas that say, no, it must be received by next Tuesday, which means if you drop that absentee ballot in a post office box today, I can't even imagine that it's going to be delivered by Monday in order to be counted by Tuesday to become official. So if you still have that absentee ballot and you're getting ready to go to the post office, forget about it. I don't even think that there's a way that you can mail it special delivery overnight next day, because I don't think it's going to get where it needs to be in time. So you either have to physically take that ballot and drop it into a special box in your county so that it will be official, or get in line today wherever the polling places are, and there's lots of them. My recommendation, find some of the little small towns in your county that have a fire station or a library or something that's open. That's what I did, because the local polling places were so backed up. But it's a nice day. If you want to stand in line for an hour or so to vote in person, today is the day. If your city, and just Google it, wherever you live across the country, Google your county where you live and find out when's the last hour you can vote in person early, and do it. I mean, if there's some that are open on Saturday and Sunday, you got another couple of days. But most places, I think the early voting is going to end today. So be aware of that. Tuesday, there's a lot of people that are old school, like those that decide, well, Christmas Eve is when I'll go do my Christmas shopping. I'm not so sure that I would encourage that this time around. A, not sure what the weather is going to be next Tuesday. B, it's going to be crowded, even though the statistics show that more people across the United States have voted in early voting. This is irregardless of next Tuesday, that already more people have voted by mail or in person in early voting than have voted in previous elections, including Election Day. So people are serious. That message has gotten out to everyone. The message that it's important that you do your civic duty, your right, and get out and cast your ballot and cast your votes. Another thing I noticed that's different this year, and again, I can't speak for the whole country because different cities, different states at least, have different rules and regulations. But I don't believe that anybody can go into a ballot booth and vote a straight ticket anymore. I don't believe that they have that anymore. So you can't just go in and just fill in that one little all Republican, all Democrat, and walk out of the booth. You physically have to go through and mark each person on the ballot. And that's just the way it is. And every 4 years, or even every 2 years in midterms, we have changes in the election process. And again, I'm still don't think I quite understand why they can't come up with a national program for voting to make it a little bit more consistent. But each state has their own commissions to do their own voter registration and their voting processes. But the point of this show was to kind of share with you some thoughts about where we've been and where we're going. I don't think that there's a person that's watching or listening to this show right now has been able to sit and watch any television, daytime or evening, without every commercial break being filled with 2 or 3 political ads. The political ads are from Democratic candidates, they're from Republican candidates. The big problem that I have, and I hope that you see it too and are unhappy with it, that the ads are all negative. Instead of John Doe, who's running on one party line ticket, spending that 60 seconds talking about, this is what I'm going to do for you to make your life better. They spend that 60 seconds talking about what their candidate either has done or has failed to do. And so it becomes more of a bashing game. And they'll spend 55 seconds of that commercial talking about why you shouldn't vote for the opponent. And then they'll say, I approve this message. That didn't tell me a thing, because I'm smart enough and you're smart enough to go online and Google each of the candidates. And I encourage you, even if it's down to the last minute and you're going out, you're undecided today, Google the candidates for the office, whatever office that is, irregardless of whether you consider yourself a Democrat or a Republican. Look at the qualifications and the background of the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate. And for that matter, if you want to go to the Green Party or the Libertarian or any other candidate that's on the ballot, Google it and see who they are, what their background is, why they're running, and on what basis they feel they are the best candidate for that office. And then make that your decision. There is nothing wrong with jumping party lines. The old days of you had to vote straight ticket, those are over, because you know what? There's good people on both sides of the aisle. It's just that there's just too many people that are on one side of the aisle that don't want to open their eyes and recognize that there is anybody of any value on the other side of the aisle. And I don't buy that argument. I just don't see it, because having grown up in the Midwest, there were times where there was a politician from one party that really had the wherewithal to handle that position. Especially, I remember the mayor of the town that I grew up in. For many years, there was a Democratic mayor, and he was perfectly good, but he turned out. And the next time the election came around, there was a young Democratic candidate that was running, but had no qualifications, and the Republican candidate did have the qualifications. He had served on the city council for many, many years, and so the Republican was elected as the mayor, and he did a fine job until he turned out. Then the choice was given to the people again. Always, I can't encourage you enough to know who the candidates are on both sides of the aisle to determine who is the best person for the job. Because isn't that the bottom line? Don't you want the best government for your town, your city, your county, your state, and our country? That's what the political process is all about. But the name calling, the bashing, this rhetoric that is being spewed out, it's nauseating. That's about the best word that I can come up with. It's just downright nauseating, because it doesn't have to be that way. I want to know what you're going to do for my wallet. I want to know what you're going to do for my property value. I want to know what you're going to do for my first responders. I want to know what you're going to do for my country, the education, the environment. I want to know. And I take the time to research it. I have voted. Did I vote straight Democratic? No. Did I vote straight Republican? No. Did I split my ticket? Absolutely, I did. Because when I went through the candidates, I found that there were good people that were running for office. And I wanted to know who was qualified to run for those offices. And that's what everybody should be doing. The status quo doesn't work anymore. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by media. Hello, that's what I am. That are throwing messages out. The far right is saying that all the problems in the world are the far left's fault, and vice versa. That doesn't solve anything. If you look at our Congress people over the years that have been willing to step across the aisle and shake hands, that's when things got done. I mean, we've seen examples in the congressional circle over the last few years where one party wants to block the other party from getting their point across, and that doesn't serve any purpose. That's counterproductive. The best thing is when people sit down at a table. I've always said this, I always will say this. You come up with your ideas, we come up with our ideas, we lay them out in the middle of the table, and we look at all those ideas and we discuss all of those ideas, the good and the bad. And then we say, you know what, we can agree on the fact that this idea is no good. Take it off the table. I think we can both agree that maybe this idea over here has some merit. Let's keep that one on the table. And you talk about it, you revise it, you tweak it here and there. Then you eliminate all the unusable ideas, and you come down to the last couple, and that's what you talk about. And you come up with a bipartisan program that is going to be the benefit for everybody, not for the people sitting around the table, but you come up with a program that's going to be of benefit to the entire country. That's what this country was founded on. That's the way this country should be run today. But unfortunately, the media has gotten in the way. It's just not popular to do a story on something positive and something good. If there's a big rally going on and there's lots of shouting and protesting going on, that's where the media wants to be. It's called dirty laundry. And that's what they have to put on the screen. Why? Because unless they give you dirty laundry, they're going to lose sponsors. And they need those big buck sponsors to come on and support those channels that give you that dirty laundry. It shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately it is. I'm not gonna change it other than on my show. And I can tell you that I just think that it's wrong. And I think that we can do better. We are better than that. And we should be better than that. And sooner or later, we're going to have to learn that, because it's important not only for us, but in the eyes of the rest of the world. I mean, I can only imagine what our allies and even what some of our adversaries around the world are doing and saying right now. I think that probably some of them are laughing at us because we are in such a state of discontent right now, and it shouldn't be that way. There's a civil way of doing all of this, and there's one word that I think sums it all up. And I think that word is respect. I think that we as a society have lost respect for each other. We are not respectful of each other. We're name calling. We're giving people nicknames. That's disrespectful. You know, to call a member of Congress, a member of the cabinet, candidates themselves, people of that have given their whole lives to service for this country, to give them labels and name calling and all is inappropriate. And I don't think it works. And I guess we have a little difficulty finding our guest Mike Martin to join us this morning, but lo and behold, there's always head monkey butt Mark Warner, who is around. And Mark, I mean, I've been jabbering for a while now.
Yeah, 25 minutes. You've been jabbering, and yep, Mike's not going to be able to make it today. Something else is come up with their traffic and all that. So okay. I told him we would talk to him afterwards. But I know I've heard you say we're not going to talk politics, but I've heard you for the last 15 minutes talk politics.
Well, I'm only talking about politics from the point of the process that we're going through. Yeah. Right. You know, this campaigning. And I mean, I think, I'll ask you the question. Wouldn't you agree that what you want to hear from politicians that are campaigning is what they're going to do to make things that are broken better? And
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what I've been hearing. So I'm up in Michigan, and there's two people running for office, Senator John Peters, and then I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's two guys. And they're just punching back and forth. But the thing is only one of them is really talking about the change they'd like to make for Michiganders, the change they'd make to like for America, the change they'd like to be working with whoever's president, right? The other one has been attacking the other senator on a personal note and actually talking about. So one of them was about Senator Peters talked about this other guy, and I can't remember his name, but his name was John. And so it's
that's ineffective campaigning right there, because Peters obviously has been running a campaign where his name is being recognized. If you can't remember who the other guy is, then he's not running a very effective campaign.
No, it's not that. It's just like the reason I know Peters is because I'm mad at him. Oh. Because he's taking jabs, and you get mad at something, right? So you pick the name that you get mad at. And I'm mad at that guy because he's picked the guy on a personal basis, saying he has no right to talk about autism because he doesn't know it and everything. And he personally said that he didn't do this and do that. Well, the other senator, he served military. His kid has autism. He supports autism. And everything that Senator Peters talked about that was supposed to be a negative was really actually all a positive. He didn't have his facts. And so he attacked him. Well, the other guy, he's not attacking Peters. he basically came out in the ad and said, and his wife came on there, and his wife said, and she was like this, talking straight to the camera. And she said who she was, and she directed towards him and said, "You don't know the facts. I have a kid that's autism. We were recently diagnosed in 2019. Our child is blah, blah, blah." And they went through that little scenario. And then she said, and then John at the end, because the other guy's name was John as well. He said, I support this message, right? The next message that I heard him go out and say was, he said, "Senator Peters, before you're going to attack somebody's family, maybe you should understand the facts." And then he talked all positive stuff, but nothing about the guy. But he talked about change. He actually talked about things that he wants to change. He talked about the positive politics. And the interesting thing about him was that I liked is that he talked about the actual things he could change, not the things that's wishful thinking. I'm going to change the world. He didn't throw that out there.
Right.
He heard that I can change that. I can be a part of that for you. And that's
what we should be hearing more of. That's what the older generations, I would say mine and yours, understand, because that's what we need in order to move forward. The young people, because they are so media savvy, I think they're the kind of people that sometimes would walk into a voting booth and they would vote for a name just because they kind of like that name. It's not an educated vote. It's just, who should I vote for? Well, I like this name, or I want to vote for because it's a woman. We got too many men. But that's where this breakdown is. And certainly you and I can agree that there is so much false information that's being thrown out in the media. It's easy to say, well, my opponent voted 90% of the time against this, where maybe in fact the guy might have cast 2 or 3 negative votes on something. But it's easier to say he voted 90% and then try and go back somewhere along and say, well, that was taken out of context, or I really didn't mean 90%. But they come out and they make statements as though they're true statements, and then they leave it to the media to fact check to find out what was true and what was not true.
So back in our day when we were looking at things, right, if somebody stood for something and had a gut feeling and that was their ground, they stood on their ground. And if they were wrong, they didn't necessarily apologize, but listen, the facts were there and the mistake was made, right? And they just moved on. Nowadays, they try to change it all up. Here's the thing though, Stuart. It doesn't matter who's running what, right? So if I'm looking at my state and I've got 2 people running for the Senate office, right? And you got Senator Peters and then Senator John. Okay, I got a black and white, a left and right, a yes and a no. I got a true or false. I got a yes and a maybe, right? I got all these things that are going through my mind on which one I want to pick, right? I only got two opponents, right? So whichever one I pick should be based on the voice. But I'll tell you what's happened to me this last couple of months. When I see the party come on the air and it's a negative, I mute it. I'm not interested. Okay. I don't need to have any negativity, not even from my current president. I don't need negativity balanced in my life. There's already enough there with the media screwing it all up. And I say media, it's every single network out there that's reporting news. Okay. It's not journalism anymore. It's reporting the unfacts, the facts that make you happy, to get you riled up, to get you all excited, and not the positive stuff, right?
That's the dirty laundry I was talking about.
When you talk about the presidential candidates, okay, here's a simple story. And I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for. I'm not going to tell you where I'm more or less or to what are left or right. Here's the thing at the end of the day. 2 people are running, okay? Both running dirty campaigns, if you want to call it dirty campaigns. Both are running negative. Both are running positive. Both are trying to make change. Both are trying to get your votes, right? Only 2. That's it. So what you have to decide on is who actually is going to continue to make the change. Now, history has shown that the same president stays in for another office actually makes the change overall. Because not every president's made the first change in their first 4 years, but they've done it in their 8 years because they couldn't get everything changed. Things happen, wars happen, attitudes happen, politics happen, all that jazz, right?
COVID-19 happened.
Right. But you have to look at the bigger picture on both of them, and you have to make your decision. Now, the problem that I have is if it's like, if we're talking about politics and we're talking about negative and positivity, and we're talking about back in our day, if you stood your ground, if this was your calling, this was your road and ticket that you were going to run on, you ran with that. You didn't change it midstream. That's your gut feeling. All right. In the candidates that were here, that's the level we're at. We're at that midstream. So take your ballots, take your choice, make your action, pick your person, and you run with it. Now, what I don't want to hear is whoever gets to be president, I don't want you to start slamming it. At the end of the day, I was taught one thing about who runs an office: respect. He's my president of the United States.
That's my magic word. That's the word that I've been pounding at for the last 6 months or more.
He is my president of the United States of America. That's it. He's in it until the day he's not. So I'm not going to try to vote him out. I'm not going to try to get him exiled out of there. I'm not going to try to get him, what's the word? Whatever it was that we've been trying to do the last couple of years. He's in the office. Let him do his job. And if you don't like him doing his job, guess what? We have an opportunity to vote him out if you don't like him. Period. End of story.
Although the one thing that you said that I might take offense, not offense with, but to question, that one person is the head of the government, but I think it's extremely important that the person who is elected to that office surround himself with the best possible people in his cabinet and in all of the agencies that he oversees. Make sure that they are qualified to carry it forward. Because to bring somebody into, let's say, to handle the environmental agency who has no background in environment, that's just wrong. It's it doesn't make a lot of sense, because that person's trying to learn about the job that they're supposed to have, instead of pulling somebody in that's got that background. I have always thought, and I think that history shows, that when presidents have brought in military leaders who know structure, who know how to take a mission and carry out that mission based on the personnel that they also have to carry out that mission, that things get accomplished. And a lot of presidents have brought in our retired generals and our retired military people in order to handle a lot of agencies in our government. I think that's an important area that maybe has been overlooked a little bit over the years, because again, one thing that's important is our modern government is run on structure. If you don't have structure, you got chaos. You're always playing catch up. So what's the best way to have structure? Put people in charge that have spent their careers in structure. CEOs of major corporations, retired military leaders, entrepreneurs that have taken something from nothing and built it into something. These are people that have the intellect to say, okay, I'm going to take on this responsibility. I'm going to continue to do what's good, and the part of it that is not so good, we're going to fix. That's how I think we can move forward in our country. And there's a little bit of disconnect. There's a little bit of I go back to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was an actor. Granted, he was governor of California for years and years and years. I liked Ronald Reagan. Yeah. I really liked him for a number of reasons, but one of the most important reasons was he understood that a coach is only good as its team. And Ronald Reagan had the ability to bring people into his cabinets and positions of authority that were right for those jobs, that would do those jobs, and ultimately make Reagan look good. Right. That's what it's all about. If if you don't do that, you're headed for a disconnect and a chaos.
Well, so I agree with all that, and man, do I miss President Reagan, because I think he had, listen, every president I think has made a mistake, and every president's lied, and every president's told the truth. Okay,
absolutely.
And I think that's just, unfortunately, I have to say it's the nature of the job to try to pan America and Americans to the direction that needs to be taken without creating too much chaos, even though it ends up creating chaos, because when you have billions of people in this world that all can make a decision, it just gets all twisted up, right? But here's something you kind of touched on a little bit, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter who is our president, right? Once we choose them to be in that office, we have the opportunity to direct that president where we need to go. We are the ones that run the economy, okay? They don't. We run it, and then they run it based on how we're running it, okay? They can make change, absolutely, and they can ruin it for us. Look what they've done with COVID, okay? They can really cause a lot of havoc and a lot of pressure. But when you look at what I would like to see the biggest change, my opinion only, is when you're going to run for office, you're working for the office. That goes back to the respect, goes back to trust. When you have what's happened over the last couple of weeks, we've had two major things happen. We've had the Judge Amy Coney Bennett get voted in. Listen, I loved the idea of how the debate and the questions went. I'm glad they didn't attack her. I'm glad they asked her the correct senile questions they might have gone to, but I love that they asked the questions, and I love that they got in the direction to actually put her. I love when she put up the piece of paper and it was blank. By the way, mine has stuff on it. But, I love that. That was a cool attitude. And she didn't plan that. That was, oh, by the way, what's on your paper, right? And that was perfect. Now, I have to speak of the parties. We've got a left and a right, right? We've got a Republican and Democrat. We don't have all this other crap that everybody always puts in. We only have two sides. We don't have a left plus and a left negative and a right plus and a right negative. We have a left and a right. It is a Republican or Democrat. That's it. I am ashamed that our political parties have an office that they have agreed to take. And then they play it so kiddie-like, so childlike, that I'm sorry, you created an ideal where years ago you said you didn't have a big partisan vote to be able to go in there, and whoever shows up gets to make that vote. Well, that's what they did. They just followed the rules. But you didn't have the audacity to show up in your position. Your position, that's what you got hired for. You're getting paid for that position. Do your job. Don't go not showing up. How could you have a voice if you don't show up? This is what they teach us, right? How could you vote if you don't show up? Yep. How could you be a part of the change if you don't show up? What you just taught me was it's okay not to show up. You can still fight. You can fight dirty, but you can play child games and you can not show up. So if there's anything that I'd like to see change, it's you got a job. Respect the job. I don't care what party you sit on. Respect the job. Respect the position you're being hired for, and do that job. And then I'd love to see them change term limits on some of these things, because some of these people, 49 years, haven't done anything but maybe one thing their whole life. Put some term limits on it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Except the problem is, who's going to vote for the term limits? If we said that we're going to pass a law limiting the terms, are our Congress people going to vote for that? Why? They got a good job. They got a cushy lifestyle. Why would they vote to change that? In my mind, the reverse is true too. I just graduated from college. Let's see, the job market is pretty tough out there. And I don't know whether I can get employment, but I got charisma. I got a personality. I got a good voice. I'm going to run for office, because if I can run for office, I'll get a nice little salary. I'll get a nice office. I'll get a staff of people to do things for me. And if I do a good job, maybe I can get elected to a higher office. Because the rules are that if you serve one term in Congress, your life is set. You got a pension, you got your insurance, you got all kinds of perks and bennies that follow you the rest of your life for serving as little as 2 years in some cases.
Yeah.
So sounds like a pretty good deal.
Well, so I got a really good friend of mine that's a judge, and he came right out of high school. Had a choice. Could run college, could run for office. Now, running for office wasn't something he thought about until his senior year in high school, and the opportunity came up, and he took the job. Now, without question, I will tell you that he held this job without anybody ever raising a finger, without anybody saying, I'm going to run against him. Zero for 25 plus years. It actually may be 27, but I know it's 25 because I remember I helped him run for a campaign for 1 year, and it was going to be one of his last years. And he knew that. But when that year he spoke a few times, not really necessarily about retiring, but more about changing life. I will tell you that 5 or 6 other people heard it, and they started campaigning, and they started saying, you know what, I'm going to run against him. But in his lifetime, he never had. But you know what it boiled down to? The city decided that we're not going to go and do all that process. We need you to pick your successor. So who do you vouch for? And that's who we're going to go with. Because even though it's been a voted position, they've always voted for him. Why? Because year after year after year after year, he did one important thing in his whole job. He treated it with respect. Every decision he ever made as a judge, he treated it by respect. And I will tell you, he's one of the fewest judges that decided to actually, I don't know, talk to the person in front of him. And if you thought you were guilty and you were going to be a jerk about it, well, guess what? There's the jail door, and we'll put you in jail. But if you would have a conversation with me, I'll be your therapist for a few minutes. Let's talk about this. And he did that. And he created change on the juvenile law system to not put them in jail so fast. But, hey, let's go get some help in the family. Let's figure out what the problem is, right? So he worked on that. That's running for office. That's working for your job.
That's taking the job seriously.
Right.
You know, instead of, say, taking the job as, you know, just for the sake of, yeah, it's good money. I like the office. Got a corner office with windows. You know, got a secretary that's going to be able to do everything for me. I can have those 2 martini lunches. You know, talking to some of the other members of the city council. We probably have far too many politicians that are in office for the wrong reasons than for the right reasons. And that's,
well, I think there's a little bit of in between though, Stuart, because I can honestly say there was 2 other judges that I got connected to in a totally different circuit, totally 2 different type of judges. One of them, I believe, is we kind of touched on that. They're just kind of set in their ways. They got in a job, they got the position, they don't have anything to worry about. They got a cushy office. Not a negative. I was in their office, and I understand where they are, but it's a job to them, and they just come in the mornings and they talk to their staff. They're not mean, they're nice. But honestly, when I really went back to look at what that person had been doing, there wasn't anything out there. And at least 10 to 15 years, never made a policy change, if you made a change, you and I don't know about it. It could have been a, internal, office structure change that made, but it wasn't a city change. It wasn't a statewide change. It wasn't anything that was huge that you would notice about. He didn't change anything in the judge seat. He just changed in the office internally.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me also is where there's also been a disconnect. When a candidate's running for office, he's out there in these small town hall gatherings, and he's talking to people, and somebody brings something up and asks him a question. He says, that's I'm going to put that on my agenda, and I'm going to do that within my first 100 days. And thank you. You bring up a good point. Then he goes to another rally, and somebody brings up something that might be a little bit the opposite. Yes, that's a very good point, and I'm going to take that under advisement. And sometimes they campaign on just listening to the crowd and giving them what they want to hear. Then they get elected, and there's a total disconnect. When I grew up, excuse me, When I grew up, when a politician said he was there to represent the people, we took him at his word. We expected him to represent the people. So if he went to the State House and there was a bill that was coming up and he was kind of uncertain which way to vote on the bill, he would usually go back to his constituency, or he would have his office, survey the people in town to say, how do you feel about this bill? Do you like it? Do you want not like it? How do you want your representative to vote for it? They would come up with a consensus. That guy would go in, and no matter what his personal feeling was, he voted the will of the people. I'm not sure that exists anymore.
Yeah.
That candidates will run to get elected, and then when they go, there's a little bit too much outside influence that enters the picture, and they end up voting the way they're kind of told to vote instead of what might be best for the people they represent or the community that they represent.
It's kind of like how I feel about some of the nonprofits that are out there. There's being told, there's being voluntold, right? You don't want my opinion. You want me to do what you want me to do, right? And that's how the media is. Unfortunately, it's not journalism anymore. It's more about what's going to make you go, wow. What's going to make you go,
right?
Give me that. Okay, I win. I get a ticket for that, right? Here's the thing that I think is kind of, you kind of hinted on it just a little bit. When you think about going back to, if you have an office that you're running for, run your job. Okay. I don't care if you play childish games. If that's part of your routine, your tactic, then play your dirty little crappy tactic. That's fine. But do your job. Show up to do your job.
That's what the people elected you to do.
Thank you. Right. At the end of the day, as far as I know, and I'm not the smartest man in the world by any means, there's never been any party, left or right, Republican, Democrat, that's ever ran the same ticket exactly 100%. So in our lifetime and in all of lifetime, if you're talking about the presidential seat, the candidate seat, the judge's seat, the Senate seat, doesn't matter what seat, there's always been at least two people, and they've always been the opposite. Yes, they may have some similarities if they're going to argue about healthcare, if they're going to argue about gas or the economy or where it's going to go, right? But if you had two perfect people, you couldn't make a decision because you got two people doing exactly the same thing. So you would have to weigh it on, I don't know, color, how they look, how they talk. You'd have to do that. I think society has gotten to a point, Stuart, and I don't know what year of president that we ended up shifting from. If I go back to President Reagan, I remember people were arguing, oh my God, a guy's never been in politics. He's a movie actor. What? There's no way he's going to make it. There's no way.
They forgot about the part where he governed the largest state in the country,
right?
And had to deal with plenty of crises there. Everything didn't go smoothly, but he brought in people to fix what was broken.
Right.
And that's something that every small municipality or large city or even the country should be doing more of. And that is, if something is broken, fix it. But don't just give it a Band-Aid fix. You've got to actually suture it up so that it mends itself. We're always playing catch up.
So it's interesting if I look at the Bush presidents, right? There's a lot of time there that I didn't really make the change. I knew a new president was going to come in, President Barack Obama. And I looked at the two parties when it came down to it, right? And at the time, I wanted change. Simple as that. I wanted change. Now, it's already happened. It doesn't matter. I chose that president. I chose that person. Okay? Well, he won. I didn't banter that person like everybody else did. Yeah, I was mad at him. I was disappointed he didn't do some of the things he did. I was disappointed how he actually would do things on camera. But when it came time for voting, time for change, I wanted him out. I didn't try to get him to get out the 3 years before. When there was a time for a vote decision, right. And then I had another decision to make. I had two parties standing in front of me. Okay, I had a male and a female. And my decision was based on, It wasn't male or female. It was based on the person I think could run this country. And I'm sorry, that other person, the female, was no way I felt that she could run that country. There's a lot of reasons for it. It wasn't about politics. Some of it was personal reasons. Some of it was just she was childlike. She acted like a child. She still acts like a child, right? Well, then Trump won. Guess what? I wanted change again. I got what I got. Now, I don't like it all, but I didn't spend 3 years trying to get him out of office. I went back to the one word: respect. It's your position. It's your job. We gave you, we voted for you, you chose, you won. It's your job. The day that we can vote you out, that's now. If you don't want him, vote him out. But all the other stuff, it's just negative. We don't need anymore. And that's what's changed that whole thing. Is if people have gotten stuck on this little nucleus called negative, instead of this like a heart that's called love and positive, we focus on that. And that's all the news can report nowadays is negative, because if they report good news, it's not any money in it.
Goes back to what I said earlier, is that it's negativity that gets the headlines. If you're a nice do-gooder and you've got this program and you're doing good stuff for these young kids or giving scholarships, that's fine.
Right.
But that ain't going to make breaking news. The breaking news is the negativity and all. Well, having said that,
yeah,
again, I don't know what it is in Michigan. Is today the last day for early voting in Michigan too?
Yeah. So yeah.
So, if you have a chance to get out there and vote today, I would say do it today.
Yeah.
Go to the polls and do your early voting. If you have an absentee ballot, take it to wherever it needs to go and drop it in that box to make sure that it's going to get counted. And the most important,
miserable.
And the other thing from both of us to all of you that are watching and listening is next Tuesday, November 3rd, is voting day.
Yes.
Make sure you exercise your right to vote and determine the direction that we're going to take in the next 4 years. It's important. And having said that, we'll say goodbye. I will say be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And we'll catch you again right here next week on Someone You Should Know.